Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today you're joining me in a 2017 Jaguar F-Pace. This is the D300S model, so it's fitted with the 3-litre V6 turbo diesel engine, of which they do share that across the JLR board. It's also paired with the 8-speed ZF transmission gearbox, and that is a very good gearbox. They've used it for a long time, and I really enjoy that pairing of that 300 horsepower engine with this gearbox. It certainly feels really quite responsive, but it also suits the environments of which you don't need it to be responsive. You need it just to be a gentle cruiser. So I think it is a really good pairing to have in a car of this size. So the F-Pace isn't quite as big as what a Range Rover Sport is, albeit certainly not a small car. So yeah, I think it works really well in that aspect. This particular Jaguar does have a wealth of options over and above what comes in a standard F-Pace. A few of which being these seats. They're the 14-way electric heated memory seats, of which you've also got lumbar support and bolster support that you can adjust on your controls down here. And you've got 3 memory settings on your door card, so if you happen to share the car with someone, you can have your different seat memory settings, which is really quite good. It also has the electric opening panoramic sunroof. There's a lot of F-Paces out there that have just the fixed glass, but this one's got the opening function, which is nicer to have on those few sunny days that we do get within the UK. The Meridian sound system's a fantastic sound system to have. It's slightly too early to have the Apple CarPlay / Android Auto from factory. There are a few people that retrofit it, but you still have the Bluetooth functionality, and to be fair, that does me absolutely fine. As long as I can stream some kind of music or podcast or whatever it might be via Bluetooth, then I'm pretty happy. And of course you can take your phone calls and everything like that. It also has the LED headlights. They're quite an expensive option to have on the F-Pace. They aesthetically do look slightly different. I think they look really smart. The daytime running light's slightly different too. And over night time, obviously that's when you notice the big difference between your standard xenon headlights and the LED headlights. So and it also does your high beam assist and everything for you. It's a very intelligent system. I also have on this one adaptive cruise control, of which you can set your speed, obviously as you would traditional cruise control, and you can set your distance between yourself and the car in front. So if the car in front starts to slow up, you automatically slow up, and it's done it via radar. So that's not necessarily new tech, but it's nice to have. And with the later cars, such as this one included, you can turn that adaptive cruise control off, and I think that's rather nice, purely because there are certain circumstances where adaptive cruise works really well. If you're in single lane traffic and you just want to take it easy, set your speed at what the speed limit is and just follow the car in front, that's great. When it comes to dual carriageway driving, it is slightly different, because you'll have circumstances where you're approaching a car of which you would anticipate on overtaking, but your adaptive cruise control is actually matching your speed to them, so you never actually catch them up. So to be able to turn it off is nice, especially in my instance. As I say, I like to drive on dual carriageway motorways with that off. It also has a winter pack on this one here, so I've got a heated steering wheel, lovely multifunctional heated steering wheel. The front seats are heated, as well as the rear seats. They're also heated, so if you're trying to show off to passengers within the winter months, it is nice to have that winter pack. And the heated steering wheel, it's a gimmick more than anything, but it is lovely to have on those colder days. As part of the JLR brand, it's also got the heated windscreen. I do think that is a bit of a game changer. If it's a particularly frosty morning, it doesn't take long at all for the windscreen to defrost. So that's also quite good, but also the downside of that is if you ever needed to replace a windscreen, they are slightly more expensive because they have those heated elements within. I've got it in the metallic space grey on the exterior, and I've got these lovely two-tone leather seats on the interior, the black and the red. It's not to everyone's choice, but I would say it was actually a fair few people's choice, only because there's a few F-Paces out there with this interior which people would have chosen from new. So that's quite nice. It's got these big 22-inch alloy wheels with Pirelli tyres all around, and I always think it's important to kind of look at the brand of tyre that people put onto their car, especially when you're talking a luxurious car such as an F-Pace. I think it's important that people spend the money on the maintenance. So when I got offered this one and it was on these tyres already, I thought that was really good news. It's got a full Land Rover Jaguar service history throughout, and again, I like that. It's something I'm quite fussy about when it comes to these vehicles. These 3-litre V6 engines are tremendous. They deliver power ever so well, but it is ever so important that they are maintained to a high level. So yeah, really pleased with that, and of course has both keys. But to drive, it feels very sporty for a big car. You know, it's responsive, it's reactive. The suspension's stiff, but it's not too stiff that you're going to be knocking any fillings out or anything like that. It just feels great for this type of car. You know, as I say, I put my foot down, no issues there whatsoever, and it's also very comfortable. I wouldn't say it was quite as comfortable as a Range Rover Sport though, because obviously the Range Rover Sport has the adjustable air suspension as standard. This doesn't even have the option for air suspension. Some people would prefer that because they'll say it's less to go wrong, but in terms of a ride comfort, it's by no means bad, but it isn't as good as what the Range Rover Sport would be. The seats also feel more sporty. They've got a bit more of a hardness to them with the bolsters and things like that. Some people would want that from an SUV, which is a sports utility vehicle. Technically that is what it's supposed to be, is sporty. But yeah, I mean, those 22-inch wheels with low profile tyres, you also get a bit more of the road noise coming through to the cabin than you do on the Range Rover Sport. I'm not sure how well you can hear it within the mic, but in a Range Rover it is a much quieter ride, and it is slightly smaller than what a Range Rover would be. The Range Rover offers fantastic practicality, but then so does this. So it all depends as to what you're looking for from your next car, I suppose. I sold that Ford Fiesta. But yeah, it's a very, very pleasant place to be, and I really am pleasantly surprised each time I jump into one of these. I think aesthetically they look slightly different as well. I do quite like the fact that it's physical buttons on the dual climate control. That's really quite smart. It doesn't have the digital dials like you would on a Range Rover of this same age, a 2017. It's got the analog rev counter and the analog speedometer, but the central bit is digital, and you do get quite a few options and settings that you can change within that, and the display is nice. But sometimes I do think that the Range Rover maybe pips it a little bit just with what you're looking at aesthetically. But yeah, it's a lovely place to be. I really do enjoy driving these cars. I think there are slightly less things to go wrong, air suspension being one of them. But sometimes I wonder whether you'd be driving one of these and you pull up next to a Range Rover Sport, the HSE Dynamic for example, where it has slightly different aesthetics, and you think, maybe I should have got one of those instead. But then I am very much a Range Rover fan, and I've had a fair few myself, more for the towing capabilities and things like that. But I really do like driving these. It's not to take it away from Jaguar, and maybe I shouldn't be doing the comparison, but that's what this video is, so I do apologise. Another thing to consider on these type of vehicles, or between the two, the Range Rover Sport and the F-Pace, is cost, both in purchase price and also running cost. I think if you used to find a Range Rover Sport, even with the recent depreciation hit that they've had, but to have the massive spec that this particular F-Pace does, so the adaptive cruise, the opening pan roof, the LED headlights and all of that, being a 2017, it would be one of their facelifts too. I think you would be paying more money for it, especially around the area that I'm in. So I think you do get more bang for your buck, if you like, with a Jaguar F-Pace, and the running cost would also be slightly less. Servicing cost, I think, if it was just to be your engine oil and filter side of thing, would realistically be the same, because they share the same engine and gearbox between the two. But just general cost on wear and tear, they're not quite so heavy, so your brakes will last longer. Suspension components aren't going to be as expensive, because, as I say, the F-Pace doesn't have the air suspension, and if the Range Rover was to have an air suspension fault, sometimes that can be a bit of a costly job with either a compressor or a bag or whatever it might be. So I think in terms of an overall running cost, it would be less than what a Range Rover is. You also get a slightly better MPG because it isn't quite as heavy, and also, you know, well, just in terms of the actual size of the vehicle, it's smaller. Well, another thing would be the road tax. The road tax is cheaper on an F-Pace than it is on a Range Rover within the UK, that is for sure. So yeah, cost is a big consideration of it. This one here, as I say, with all of the additional extras at 84,000 miles, with the full Jaguar Land Rover service history and everything like that, we've got up at 18,995, which seems to be tremendous value for an F-Pace. Especially, as I say, this particular one, I mean, I may be a bit biased because it's on my forecourt, but I think it is fully loaded, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Range Rover with the same spec for similar kind of money. I really like it aesthetically. I think it looks gorgeous. It is a more sporty looking car than what the Range Rover is, and people do like to kind of go for that. So as a standalone car, I think it's brilliant. In comparison to the Range Rover Sport, I do think it kind of has it on the looks. I like the look of these, but just the general drive and the road noise and things like that, the comfort with the air suspension, I'd be really hard pressed to choose it over a Range Rover Sport. That is a personal opinion. Some of you might disagree. But from my experience of having driven a fair few of both of the cars, they're both wonderful places to be. This D300 works really well in this Jag. As I say, we've got an open road now, and it is tremendous. I really do enjoy driving it, but it's an everyday car for me, and for what I would like it for practical use and everything like that, I think I'd probably still choose the Range Rover Sport HSE. And yeah, that's kind of my conclusion on whether the Jaguar F-Pace is a better car than the Sport. I think it's an absolutely tremendous car, but I still think the Sport is kind of king of the two. But yeah, please do let me know in the comments if you agree or you disagree. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really does mean a lot. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. And yeah, any questions, please feel free to ask, and I hope to see you for the next one. Thank you.